I have with me the great Brandon Draper, one of my very favorite musicians in all of the world. Former board member Aaron McGrain actually introduced us a long time ago, and we bonded over a rhythmic form called Samai, I believe.
That is it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nerdy.
Super nerdy.
Yeah, a boy from Lindsberg and a boy from Little Rock bond over an Arabic rhythm in 10, and yeah, rest is history.
It's true.
So, tell me your backstory.
I was born in Salina, Kansas. My dad is a professional keyboard player, primarily the Hammond B3 organ. And so I grew up thumping my leg in the crib, and my family called me Thumper. And I always had uh, sticks in my hand, so I don't remember not playing drums. Dad's the house that we lived in, the entire basement was a studio. So there was a drum set, recording equipment, keyboards, guitar amps. Bands would be in and out rehearsing. Dad would be gone on the weekends, sometimes 3, 4 day going out of town, short little runs. I started lessons when I was 5, and my mom and my aunt Connie would drive me to my drum lessons and back. And the guy I got to study with was Dean Kranzler, who was in bands with my dad, but he was also a professor of percussion at Fort Hays State University and then a few other small colleges, um, which is kind of a common thing in a lot of areas like this, where the person that is the real expert on the subject teaches at 5 colleges adjunct. So I got to study with a real source from the beginning, which is kind of rare. A lot of folks have different experiences learning music. Mine was this all natural improvising blues, jazz, funk thing that my dad was doing. Growing up, being encouraged to jam and improvise because that's what he did. No boundaries. And then having a teacher that was teaching me how to read music and play music at the same time I was learning to read letters in school. So it made it kind of a weird thing. I didn't necessarily uh I just didn't put much time into the school work. I passed all my classes, but because I'd already been built up that reading music is just as important as everything else, I just put that first. Fast forward to fourth grade, sixth or fifth grade, you're gonna be in school band. My teacher didn't think it was a healthy thing for me to be in a group where everybody was learning drums for the first time. So I learned violin. I played violin fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and that really opened a lot of doors. I started playing guitar. Around age 9, I was sitting in with dad's bands. At 14, I started going on the road with him. And all that while I was learning rudimental snare drum, timpani, marimba. My teacher, Dean, every single lesson would do rhythmic dictation. So in schools of music, we call that aural skills, how we learn by ear. My father's primarily ear trained only at a ridiculously high natural level. Um, and so all these things kind of coming in together turned into I just knew that I wanted to go to school and be like Dean and get a degree in percussion, maybe do a master's, maybe do a doctorate, play in a symphony. I read this book in the library. My mom would take me to the library every weekend, and I quickly got to the grown up section looking at books on music. I just thought the library was the most magical place. Like there's all this information. Here's this book that has pictures of drums and tells the history. So James Blade's percussion instruments and their history, and it shows how the nakara, the clay kettle drums that were being used in the Middle East for just playing rhythms along with music, then were manufactured into brass and copper and during the Industrial Revolution, and that gave way to timpani. And the timpani were regarded as the most regal. The timpanist was the best gig you could get. That was an important instrument. The guild of kettle drummers was a thing, and it wasn't just hitting the drums. There was like an ornate way of playing it that was passed down from father to son, from father to son. Which in my head, as a kid, was kind of like, being a knight and being passed down, like that. So I got way into timpani. I ended up being three-time all-state timpanist in the orchestra for the state of Kansas. And that's just what I wanted to do. Did college, did grad school, started subbing in the Santa Fe Symphony, New Mexico Symphony, playing jazz gigs, playing pop gigs, learning everything I could in New Mexico. I went to New Mexico for graduate school, and um, part of why I went there was the professor Scott Ney was very passionate about world percussion, frame drumming, darbuka, as well as classical percussion. So he was like the perfect fit for me. And I knew it when I met him. When I auditioned, it was like, oh, wow, this guy appreciates everything that you hit. It's not just rudimental snare drum or just concert marimba or, et cetera, et cetera. So played in some symphonies, started touring, played with Otmar Liebert, the nouveau flamenco guitarist. It's kind of smooth jazz meets world music. There's a huge opportunity in that band for exotic sounds. So I was able to play didgeridoo, pandero, cajon, congas, bongo. I did conical with the tabla player, and conical is the recitation of syllables of South India. That phrase I just said is actually one of the phrases I learned on that tour in the tour bus. Fast forward to New Mexico, or fast forward to Kansas City. There's a lot more stuff that happened back then, but we get to Kansas City. Aaron McGrain says, "You got to meet Beau Bledsoe. You and I met for coffee or something." And how we got onto Samai was I learned Samai from a website called Kafif's Rhythms. It's one of the first websites ever. So when the internet was invented, like any normal young boy, I looked up drums, and I found this website on Middle Eastern rhythms, but it told the legitimate history of the region and the time, and how these rhythms were used in society. And this rhythm called Samai and 10 beats, I learned, and I played on darbuka, I played on frame drum, I played on drum set. Um, my house is similar to yours, Beau. You're only an arm's length from an instrument anywhere in the house. So this is the Samai rhythm.
Right behind me.
Taka doom doom ta ta tika tika ta tika doom tika tika ta tika tika ta tika taka doom doom ta ta tika tika ta doom ah doom doom doom. So anyway, I had learned that, I jammed on it, I recorded some stuff, and then I met Beau Bledsoe, this kid from Arkansas, and you were literally the first person I met that very comfortably knew that rhythm. And so when we were having coffee, it was like, how fast can we get to our instruments and try and play this together? I'd never played that rhythm with another human.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Um, and that's so wild that it came from a website that was so thorough, that still exists. And I use it as a resource with my students. But that's kind of a backstory. All that while I was playing guitar and writing songs and started my ASCAP publishing as a teenager. And
You had your own jazz group with Rich Wheeler, right? Your own book, your own composition.
yeah, yeah, in New Mexico, I started writing a lot of original jazz music. And when I moved to Kansas City, started a group with Rich Wheeler. As the Rich is the constant over all these years, but I called it Brandon Draper New Quintet, even though I'd never had an old quintet. But part of it was a branding thing. I had just moved to Kansas City in the mid 2000s, like 2006, 2007. There were a lot of younger, newer ideas coming out, but 80% of the market in Kansas City was still traditional jazz. So I thought, well, if I call it New Quintet and I'm a new person to the scene, that might make it more recognizable. But we put out 2 albums and played clubs. I think realistically, it was about a 4 year, maybe 3 year, yeah, 4 year project, and then '06 to 10, and then in 2011 was when I started working with Particle, jam band, electronica group from California. Um, I worked with a group called Quixotic and was their music administrator, music supervisor, set up their publishing and music director. So I wrote music, played drums, big circus, lots of mixed media.
Hmm. And then you and I
Ala
had the project Alla Turca, right?
Ala Turca, you and I played duo quite a bit, and then Ala Turca started when Sait moved here, and I believe that was right around the time I had started being gone more with Particle.
Hmm.
I think like 10, 11, maybe. I can't remember. And then I would join you guys once in a while. And then Sait moved and I jumped in the band. We recorded our second album at the studio at Kansas City Academy. And it was kind of a test drive of that new recording setup there. We had a 3124 API 8 channel of the API mic pre's that are industry standard, really, really clean. I made a I made a ISO booth literally with Jeff Harshbarger in mind. That ISO booth had like 12 sides. It went up kind of like my ceiling here. It was a 45-degree angle. So Jeff's a pretty big guy and with an upright bass. If he can be in that booth and be comfortable, just about anything would work. And we made that all a Turca record. And I don't it was so much fun, Bo. We were just like doing our thing. We were just, wow, we're recording, this will be fun, and let's mix it, and hey, let's put it out. And then an incredible surprise, we got 4.5 stars in downbeat, and that's not an easy task. um Artists that I have looked up to and listened to my whole life got 4 stars and 3.5 stars in their reviews. And I still listen back to that record and it sounds incredible. I mean,
What's up?
we took our time and just really made the best art we could.
I really enjoyed putting that lengthy percussion piece together. Love that. That
That
was.
had Samai in it. It
Hmm.
was it was basically Samai. We called it Shiftatelli Zenkov, but it had Samai and Zenkov.
That's right.
And the icing on the cake was the saws,
Yes, the jangly saws. Hmm.
jangly saws, and getting everybody to yell Takadima,
Oh yeah.
Takadima, which kind of was stolen from or inspired by the album Bari by Ojos de Brujo,
Oh yeah.
the flamenco hip hop
Hmm.
Indian funk yeah, I don't know what you call it. That was a group, that was an album that was like, whoa, you can do this. That
Mm,
eclecticism of styles.
I didn't know you liked Osterbrujo.
That's where that Takadima like whole idea came from. And then Tanara one,
Hmm.
the sub-Saharan guitar group. I talked with their I talked with them outside their tour bus. We were on a festival at the same staying at the same hotel, and got their design for like how they mic their djembe, and that's how we mic'd our djembe in Ala Turca's record Yalniz, which is the silliest thing ever. Shove a 57 up inside the drum and then wrap the bottom of the drum with a, a bath towel. Who would have thought?
I'm learning so much about my own career. I didn't, yeah, I don't even remember that. That's incredible. Well, tell me about Bongo Berry and Drum Safari and how your educational path as being an instructor led you into your job now at KU.
Okay. Um, in all through my childhood, I was literally fascinated with drums and knew that's all I really wanted to do was drum. Seeing the books in the library and just seeing pictures of these drums from different cultures. Then when I was in college, I met a girl that was there for the same reason I was, to study with Dean Kranzler, and she's my wife, Taryn. We've been married now. This summer will be 23 years. Yep, I did the math right. And Taryn was equally interested in world percussion and frame drums like this, where you're holding the drum. And during our freshman year, Glenn Velez, who is, I guess, made his mark in the Paul Winter consort for years, but Glenn created his own style of playing these kind of drums, mixing Middle Eastern and Indian and West African techniques, using all of the fingers. And so we got to study with Glenn, and our teacher encouraged it. And then Taryn, myself, and a few other students started a drum club. I found out that you could get you could reserve the stage in the theater at our college if you had a club. So we reserved the stage every Wednesday night from 9, or I think it was 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. So it was basically every single week when all the work was done, we would gather on the stage. We decided we weren't going to talk or talk about what we're doing. We're just going to gather and play drums in a uh, maybe similar to how people that lived way before us would gather to relax at the end of a day. And we would just jam. That turned into getting interested in drum circles. We went to the Percussive Arts Convention and did a drum circle facilitation workshop with Arthur Hull. And it was one of the first of its kind, open to the public in a academic sort of social way through the Percussive Arts Society. That was in 2003, I think. Yeah, 2003. Then we started doing drum circles in New Mexico at the Vista Grande Community Center. It was free to the public. We literally just provided programming for after school care kids and tried these techniques out of facilitating drum circles. Everyone plays, everyone, doesn't matter what you play, it only matters that you play. Um, Bringing, helping young people with confidence and um, self-confidence and team building, and all the things that come with that type of activity. We moved to Kansas City, and I was working doing the drum line at Shawnee Mission West High School, and there was a band parent with a camera and a microphone, and he looked like a news person. And the day before, there was a news person at the school, and the drum line didn't sound good, and I was not excited about it getting recorded. um, I was much younger then, and now it's, I mean, it's, we're just in that's where we're at in the process. It's no big deal. But back then I was like, I don't want people to hear us if we sound bad. And so I asked this guy with a camera, who are you? And he goes, oh, I'm just a band parent. I'm a drummer too. I do drum circles. And, I was young and I was like, well, I do drum circles too. I took a facilitation with da da da. And he goes, oh, that's cool. My name's Bongo Berry. I'm good friends with Arthur Hole. And it was like, okay, I've heard of you. We become best friends. He becomes my mentor. He did a lot of the research with Alzheimer's patients in California at the beginning of that research, and how drumming and music can help reconnect. Um, I don't know all the exact terminology, but it reconnects to memory with people that have memory challenged function and dementia and Alzheimer's. And Barry was our mentor then. He did kids shows all year long and through the summer with his stage name Bongo Barry. His name's Barry Bernstein. He was one of the first Remo artists to have all these drums that he would bring to do facilitation workshops in all kinds of different communities. And then in 2009, my first daughter, Eva, was born. And on the second day, we brought her home from the hospital, and Barry and his family were coming over and they'd made a lasagna. And Barry had told me from the beginning of our relationship that I needed to slow down, I needed to settle down, I needed to spend more time with family. And because he had done that, he had older kids in high school. So he was so excited. I have a text on my phone from when we were in the hospital saying, I'm drumming for baby Draper today. Can't wait to meet her. He was just so excited. And we pulled in the driveway with Eva to come home. And I got a text from one of his kids that he had passed away. He passed away in his sleep. And so that was really tough. And we didn't know what to do so much. We'd already been starting this drum safari kids program and doing programs with Barry. About a year after his passing, there was a big void to fill that he had created in the children's entertainment and education community. People wanted the interactive drumming type shows that Barry had done. So Taryn, my wife Taryn, and I got with Barry's wife Laura and family and discussed what we could potentially do. And so we purchased Barry's trailer and all of his drums and made an agreement to pay off that cost over the course of a number of years. And we started doing our drum safari. And the drum safari is a program where we bring instruments for all ages. It's not just for little kids. We've done quite a few programs in assisted living areas and senior assisted living places, Alzheimer's, dementia wings of places, festivals. The family that plays together stays together. It's an all ages thing, and we
What's the
teach
tagline?
rhythms. What's that?
Was that Barry's tagline? A drum in every home or every hammer? What was
Barry's taglines were a drum in every home, that he took from Babatunde Olatunji, and Baba created Drums of Passion. That's another fantastic story of drumming in the community. A Nigerian that came to America to go to college and was going to move back to be a diplomat for Nigeria. But when he got to America, he saw that no one really understood or had any reference of African culture. So he stayed here and started a traditional drumming ensemble called Drums of Passion. So a drum in every home, the family that plays together stays together. And it doesn't matter what you play, it only matters that you play. Those were Barry's kind of taglines. So Drum Safari took off. We teach rhythms with mnemonic device by encountering different animals and things in nature. So an elephant is elephant stomp stomp, and we show a poster of an elephant. Everyone's, what does an elephant do with their feet? Everyone starts saying elephant stomp stomp. Then when we pass the drums out later, I hold up the poster, I say elephant stomp stomp once, and then the whole place just locks together in this rhythm. And we've been doing that now. That started in 2005 in New Mexico. So next year will be the 20th anniversary of that program, and we reach around 36,000 people a year, youth and families throughout a variety of states in the middle of the United States. So Iowa, Arkansas, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've seen you, teach large groups of children rhythms that would be very complex to get for anyone from an academic background in such simple ways. It's so impressive to watch you do it.
Yeah, we did that together. I think Kareem
Oh,
was
yeah.
on the teachers or the parent board, and we went to a middle school or a grade school, and we taught them to count in 5 or 7 or 9 or something. And it just worked so quickly. And then we played our song in like 5 or 7. And we like in the band, Ala Turca, we're like looking at each other laughing, like, how is this working? And I was just as excited as you guys. Like, sometimes you never know how easy or difficult it can be. But yeah.
Yeah, it's always magical. You have a really incredible gift of doing that. So let's talk about your new projects that you've been working so hard on that sound absolutely fantastic. I just love Dwayne. You actually introduced me to Dwayne a long time ago. And yeah, tell me
Yeah,
about
that's a
project.
wild ride. So I started playing guitar when I was like 10 or 11. And when I got to high school, there were quite a few drummers in like wanting to be in the jazz band. And it was a smaller town. So seniority did have an influence. So I wasn't going to be playing drum set in the jazz band as a freshman, even though I had the skill. And so my drum teacher and the band director, I had the most incredible, absolutely incredible band directors. I mean, this is another one of those stories where the band director saved my life. I think I don't remember much of high school outside the band room. But my band director, Doug Talbot, who just passed away last year, and Dean Kranzler, my teacher, they were like, why don't you take some guitar lessons and learn some jazz chords and just play guitar? There's no guitar player in jazz band. And so I really, really embraced that and learned seventh, ninth, 13 chords, learned a bunch of inversions without the root, things that Kirk Hammett didn't do, because my guitar background was all the early Metallica stuff, like that Metallica up until the Black Album. That's everything I learned to play on guitar, and so I got into jazz. I was writing a bunch of music. I had a band called Walrus in high school and college, and we actually won a battle of the bands at Emporia State University and got to open for Veruca Salt, which is a
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool band back then.
saw them once. Yeah.
So that was all through college. In college, so growing up, I always jammed with my dad. He was in his own bands. I had my own bands. In college, we would throw parties out in the woods or on a farmer's property, rent a generator, charge $5. People that were of age could have drinks that were provided, and we would throw like little things. When I went to New Mexico, I kind of put the guitar down. I moved back here in '06, and I picked the guitar back up, started writing, recording, producing, met up with folks like Nathan Bliss of Barnaby Bright, Jake Blanton, who I recorded a bunch of stuff with. Actually, this is I have Jake's bass right here. I bought his one of his super rad basses before he moved. And I started recording more with my dad, original music. And my first project was I'll record his stuff. And so in 2012, we released the Paul Draper Band, and it was all his music. I produced it, recorded it, engineered it. And then I'd been writing my own stuff and I'd done some different things. And it just came to us that, well, let's call it the Draper Family Band. And then it can be songs I wrote, it can be songs dad wrote. My daughters are getting older and singing quite a bit. And from a business and branding perspective, it took a lot of pressure off who Brandon Draper is, because if you look up Brandon Draper, it's like, well, is it the professor? Is it the drummer? Is it the guitar player? Is it the wannabe comedian that doesn't ever stop talking at the dinner table? Like who is this entity? The Draper Family Band then we started recording, we played some shows. The recordings never got to a place where I just was like, this is it, let's put it out. Last year I got with some friends at Symphonic Distribution and signed a label distribution deal for my record label. And most of the music had already been recorded. I just needed to do a little touch up, add a few things, and the first Draper Family Band record was released just last week, May 3. One of those songs was written in 1996 in my bedroom in my parents' house for the band Walrus. And that's the beautiful thing about writing music and intellectual property is it's property. It's just it can stay there. There are songs that were written decades ago, hundreds of years ago, that are still valuable. And so that means mine is too, and yours are too. If anyone that writes music, I can find these old gems that I wrote years ago and edit and tweak and get it to that place of completion. And that's what we did. So the first record is out, streaming on all platforms. I have compact discs arriving sometime today. Vinyl records are going to be available before the end of the year. The second album is already almost halfway tracked, and we're planning to release that in August. And I might have a third album that comes out before the end of the year. And part of it is everything is working so easily through the different channels of my home recording studios at different places that I work, working with Dwayne Trower at Weights and Measures, Mark Thies at Marcosa Studio, Brian Nicholas, Tone Dimension. Um, there's so many options now to get things done that I don't want to wait. And I'm going against some of the things of like I should put an album out and promote it, and do all these things and tour it and take time before the next thing comes out. But I also want to just let the floodgates go. And Dad's sounding better than he ever has. He's at a very healthy, ripe age of 75, and he's still killing it. And so that's where all that stuff is kind of headed right now.
Okay, so we can, I'll just link in the video here where people can find these new projects and maybe some of our old projects and just put it all up there.
Yeah.
And you're working with Audix microphones as well as an endorser.
Yeah, the Audix microphone company is based in Portland, Oregon, and this is their new PDX 720. It's kind of cool. PDX is Portland and 720 is the area code, so I just love that natural branding. They're not trying to be pretentious or anything. It's just literally where it is. Um, this is number 10 of the first like 150 they made, and it's got my Draper Rama brand engraved on it. Draperama. That's my website. That's my at Draperama on social media. I started my website in 2001, and I had a friend that lived in Cupertino and was working in all those industries. So my website was Google optimized, and we can thank Rob Schneider and Saturday Night Live for Draper Rama. I just thought that sketch was funny, and it was Draper Rama, Draper Reno. And all the musicians in that time were doing Dynamod Portal, yournamemusic.com, and I just didn't want to be that. I don't ever I to my own demise, I want to be so different than everybody else all the time. But so yeah, Audix mics, I've got a whole set of their drum mics and piano mics and everything else. Was able to work an order for the University of Kansas and have a whole locker full of microphones for the jazz department at KU. Um, I endorse Zelgin cymbals. Um, the only cymbals I have near me right now are really old stuff. This is a 1960s round badge Gretsch drum set, and these are 50s cymbals, primarily what I practice on. Meinl hand percussion. They make hand drums and stuff. Vic Firth drumsticks. So those are the companies that I endorse, and I truly endorse them. I used these. I used all of these things before ever having a relationship.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't really get to the teaching thing before. I teach at the University of Kansas. Before that, I taught drumline for 20 years at high schools in New Mexico and here. Bobby Watson hired me at UMKC when I first moved here. That was my first teaching gig at like age 26, which was kind of wild. Um, that young and being uh, having the respect of a legend in jazz music like Bobby. And then I started at KU. Over the years, I created new courses. Academia is weird. You can apply for a job and then you'll teach all those things. You can get hired as an adjunct and teach those adjunct, lecturer things. I wanted to do more. There weren't any opportunities at all. So I created new courses, proposed them to different departments, and now I teach. This is my 15th year, and I teach the drum set studio that has over 25 students in the drum set studio. And we had to hire another adjunct teacher to cover the influx. So that's awesome. Um, I believe it's the biggest drum set studio in the Midwest. I'd love to find out what other schools have, but that's a pretty big number. So 25 just in drum set. I started a music entrepreneurship and business program called the Music Enterprise, which also has a really deep direct connection to you, Beau. You were getting started with the Artist Inc. program at the same time I was creating this. And I think you might have even taught a course at UMKC.
Hmm.
And so we were sharing ideas, and you gave me so much content that is now kind of the industry standard, which is uh, learning all of the different facets of an arts industry and then putting together a portfolio. You called it a business tools portfolio. Um, so the students in this university program are being assessed by way of a portfolio review at the end of their coursework. And that portfolio for me at the University of Kansas and Music Enterprise is all of the assets they would need to market themselves, promote themselves, and work with a diverse set of peers in the industry. So websites, headshots, mission statements,
Taxes.
um, taxes, accounting,
Yeah.
and all, the giant list of networking. I also teach audio production in the film department, and then I teach a first year course through the first year experience on where music scenes come from. So it gives students a chance to study different cultures throughout time and geography. So punk rock at CBGB in New York to Kulthum in Arabic music to Tanarawan in Africa and high life music and jam band, hippie, drug culture in Haight Ashbury.
Yeah,
Um,
it's nothing short of revolutionary. I mean, when I was coming up through the university system, these topics were all considered way beneath the tenured professors. They just never touched on these things, you know.
it's still a challenging area of research to navigate. It definitely is opening up in a lot of institutions. KU has a pretty diverse and open mindset, primarily because of its location in Lawrence, Kansas, and the history of music there. But there still are quite a few challenges in university and academic settings. Everyone's an expert, and that creates a siloing that makes it challenging to bring those parts together. My entire existence as an academic and as a musician in collaborative ensembles is to connect people. So I fight that fight and sometimes have challenging conversations, but it's all out of respect to all of the genres and all of the areas. I think that's what makes us so special as a creative species on this earth, right?
That's true. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we're really honored to have you as the Artist of the Month. Um, yeah,
You're
I'm a
the best, Beau. I
thank
couldn't
you,
think of a
Brandon.
better person to interview, and we could talk for 7 more hours about everything else. So, um,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
yeah. Maybe I'll
Thank
just
you to
come over.
Heartland Song Network and to everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a whole lot, Brandon.
You bet. Bye bye.